What's up everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today we're going to be looking at some surrounding aspects of Gotham Knights, and this has been spurred on from one of the interviews that recently took place here around the Summer Games Fest. It's an interview that was conducted by GameSpot, and Fleur Marty, the executive producer, and Jeff Eleanor, the game director, are actually featured on this interview, and the interviewer was able to ask a series of questions. Now, I actually recommend that you watch the complete documentary. I'm going to provide a link in the description so that you have some sort of a basis to go from as to what I'm getting at with this particular interview. Now, for the most part, some of you here in our community, you've been pointing to this interview, and shout out to, those of you who've been throwing out the links and the little tidbits about this interview. I went ahead and I watched it, and I thought it was actually quite interesting because it seemed like this interviewer is a Batman fan in terms of the video games. Even though it was 15 minutes, some important questions were asked, and I thought we'd go ahead and just discuss a few highlights. Now, one really cool thing about this particular game, the Gotham Knights game, is the villain group, the Court of Owls. Now, for many of us, we know that the Court of Owls is this villain group that was created quite recently, and I put that in quotes, by Zack Snyder, one of the co-creators of the Court of Owls, and I think Greg Capullo, and maybe I don't know if there are any other surrounding writers to this particular narrative. And it's been depicted in the graphics novels as well as the animated series. The animated movie Batman vs. Robin actually features the Court of Owls. So there already seem to have been an established canon. There already seem to have been some established knowledge base regarding this villain group and how they're related to Batman and the Bat family. So this is what makes it very important. The Court of Owls is not just a villain group that, just came out of nowhere. They're in the rogue gallery for Batman. And so the interviewer was very keen on trying to figure out how the Court of Owls was going to be depicted in Gotham Knight and how the developers intended to weave them into the story. Was it going to have similarities to what we've seen in the animated, series or in the graphic novels? Because there are relationships between the Court of Owls and the Bat Sons. And I'm speaking specifically of Damian Wayne and Dick Grayson. There's kind of a relationship in the comics where, Dick Grayson is supposedly somewhat his grandfather or something like that. Used to be, in a sense, associated with the Court of Owls in one way. I can't remember. It's been years. So somebody correct me on those details in the comment section, please. And the developers actually mentioned that their own depiction of this is not going to follow very closely to what we have in the comics and even potentially what we have in the animated series, because the animated series already features another Robin, and this game is going to be featuring another Robin in regard to Tim Drake versus Damian Wayne. So this is something that I felt from the beginning was very interesting, but they wanted to tell their own story, so I didn't necessarily see any problem in it. Now, the challenge nonetheless is how much they want to stick closely to canon, because the developers have already said and always have said, this is from even the creative director Patrick Redding when he was taking interviews, he said that Gotham Knights was pulling from a lot of the established canon, and we're going to see things that are from canon, and we're going to be able to appreciate those things. And the truth is, we already have. We've seen the Rogue Gallery. We've seen some of the enemies or Rogue Gallery, members of Batman. We've seen Mr. Freeze, we've seen the Penguin, we're seeing the Court of Owls, and we've also seen some other elements like the Belfry. We've seen Alfred, we've seen Renee Montoya. We know of the story in this particular case of Jim Gordon, even though he's not presently in the game. And so, yes, we're seeing those elements, but the question that many people are probably still asking is how close to these elements is the game going to depict, all of this. Now, there's something that I feel is necessary, and we need to talk about this, and this is the creative liberty and creative freedom, and how much of it developers, should be able to take in their own game development. Now, for video games, we give a lot of leeway. This is just the truth. In fact, in Batman Arkham Knight, the amount of leeway that was given there was no small leeway for that particular game in the way that they actually described and depicted the Arkham Knight, right? The Arkham Knight was supposedly, Red Hood in a sense, but they first kind of packaged him, and then they ran all of this random, storytelling, how he's basically associating with these known villains that Batman is pretty much against. and then eventually he breaks out to then start trying to take out Batman on his own. So that storyline did have a lot of creative freedom to it, and for the most part, we did not necessarily go too far in criticizing it. It wasn't like something that people did not necessarily like. I think people did appreciate it for what it was, but at the end of the day, you know, you really have to come down to the point where you say, okay, other things that are narrative driven, that seem to have creative expression behind them, what is the motivation behind it? Another question that was asked in that particular interview that really caught my attention, because this is one that I've done a video for. In fact, it's one of my more popular videos, is the Mystic Leap for Red Hood. And, you know, this is one thing the interviewer asked. They were like, well, you know, there is something that the community has always kind of pointed out, which the Mystic Leap is. How is it possible that Jason Todd is able to start, you know, floating in the air? How is it possible that he's able to just jump from one place to the other using soul magic? And Jeff Eleanor said, you know, they're trying to tap into that aspect of him where he's already been dead and he's been resurrected in a sense using a Lazarus pit or whatever it is. And they think that they have enough canon to be able to say he has some exposure to mystical arts. And so that's their own explanation as to why he has that ability. Now, I've also realized that many people in this space do not like that explanation. They don't think that that is representative of Jason Todd. And in my opinion, the mechanic as a game mechanic, I like it because I'm, you know, into game development. Some of you know that I've been taking my time to learn the art and what it's about. So for me, it's pretty cool from a development standpoint. And I can see how in a, you know, game standpoint where you're making a game for fans who are very in tune with the narratives, the stories, and the characters, it could rub off wrong. And so I understand both sides. And I think the director's explanation for it, I don't know, it will probably come into fruition if we were to maybe see more of Jason actually using more mystic arts in this game. And then that's probably where things are going to settle. And what the good thing is he did say that not only is Jason going to be using these mystic arts in that mystical leap, we're going to be seeing it in some of his other skills and abilities. So I think this is probably going to provide a framework for more people to be able to appreciate, okay, this is how they want to take Jason, and it might provide some cohesion at the end of the day. But nonetheless, I don't know how people are still going to embrace all of it. Me, I'm going to go into this game with the mind of, say, game dev / fan, in a sense, like, okay, how do they bring the mechanics together? How do they merge and gel everything? And I know some others are going to be going in with a story and a narrative driven emphasis in terms of all of that. I am interested in narrative. Don't get me wrong. I want to see how they do it, but I've seen that fans are much more, in a sense, I don't know, lenient on how much they're willing to accept in terms of creative freedom with developers. So I'm not necessarily going to hound the devs here on too much of their narrative choices unless they go off the beating path, if you get what I mean. Now, yes, even though Batman, so-called Batman, is dead in this game, they didn't veer off the beating path. There have been representations in the animated series that have depicted Batman as dead and have brought these Gotham Knights to the forefront. Or maybe they've depicted that Batman is in a pinch or in a tight situation, and it's been depicted that the Bat family came in to help. So these are really interesting, you know, I don't know, components of this entire game that I feel like as a community, we probably need to continue to pay attention to the different elements. Some people are not going to like some of the things that this game depicts. Some people are not going to enjoy it 100%. And then there are some that are just going to take it at face value. And I think as everyone is having the conversations as to what it is that they like and don't like, we can still come back and say, well, there are aspects that we enjoy in terms of the game, and then there are aspects that we don't necessarily like. I think one of the biggest surprises for me was with Arkham Knight. A lot of people said they did not like the Arkham Knight character and how they depicted Jason. It was a big issue in the Arkham community for the longest time. For me, it didn't make a difference. I thought it was pretty cool. Right now, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a fan of everything Red Hood. And so this is why I was looking at things with that lens. And I'm probably still looking at this whole Mystic Leap thing from the same lens as well. But it's just my own opinion. It's just the way I value and visualize some of these things. So I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what it is that you think regarding the narrative freedoms that the developers are taking to implement in the game. Hopefully we'll talk very soon. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Peace out.